Hey guys, gonna do something a little different this morning. Instead of going on and explaining about my game I've been playing, I'm gonna do a little review, an actual prediction today about a show I watch on a pretty regular basis called The Walking Dead. There was a new episode that was out last night, and needless to say, I had trouble getting to sleep last night. I was up till about 2:30, 3 o'clock, just thinking about different outcomes that may or may not have happened. Um, Basically, you watch these shows and there's a cast of characters, and you end up getting attached to these characters, and it just so happens that my favorite character possibly died last night, and I'll go on about that possibly part. Since I've started watching The Walking Dead, I've decided to also read the comic book series, which has a little bit to tie in with my prediction that's coming up. And it's kind of weird because as soon as I mentioned comic book series, everyone's like, well, the Walking Dead on TMC is totally different from the comics, and it is. It really is. Like, there's no comparison to between the two. There's a lot of changes that happen between them. I mean, for instance, there is no Daryl Dixon in the comic book series, and I almost get a sense of that. Like, I almost feel like I'm watching Final Destination, but on The Walking Dead. And the reason why I say that is because so many people, you never know what's going to happen to the people. It's not like they're doing a script by script playbook of the comic series. And I guess I can actually give two examples of what I mean. For instance, if you read the comic book series, Judith is already dead. Yeah, the little baby Judith, she is dead. She died back at the prison. Sh- uh, Rick's wife actually gets shot, and she lands on top of Judith. And it's one of those things where I don't know if TMC didn't want to do that because now they're crushing a baby. It's a little bit not graphic, but maybe just too disturbing to do. But that's one of the ones that changed. So it's almost like, hey, Judith's alive now, yay! What are they gonna do with Judith? And another one is Carol. She was supposed to be bitten by a walker like 2 seasons ago, I think. I can't remember exactly when, but she's alive and kicking, and she's playing a really important role now. She's behind the scenes, always has her eyes open to things. She's been very utility. The nickname I'd like to use for Carol is actually Clutch, because she's been very clutch. That's she's been a crowd favorite amongst some of my friends too. But anyways, that's where I get the feeling like I'm kind of watching Final Destination when I'm watching Walking Dead, because you honestly don't know what's going to happen, especially with characters that, if you read the comic books, characters that are going to die or supposed to die in the comics, and then they don't, and it's like, oh, wow, they changed that. Like, and actually going on the third example here, if I'm right, Maggie's sister, I believe, is still alive in the comic series, which to a lot of you would bring joy. It's like, oh, she was awesome. I can't remember her name right now, but I believe she is still alive. That one I might be wrong on. But anyways, going on to my predictions and everything, Glenn supposedly died last night on The Walking Dead, and he by far he's my most favorite character out of all of them. So the prediction I'm about to make, I'm not saying because he's my favorite or anything. I'm simply saying it because I think it makes sense. And in the comic series, I'll start off by explaining what happens there. We will be introduced to a character by the name of Negan. And very shortly after being introduced to Negan, Negan ends up finding Rick and his crew, who ends up killing quite a few of Negan's men. And he captures them, lines them all up, tells them how pissed he is that Rick's group killed so many of his men, and says, you know, I don't really want to kill you guys, but I have to show you guys some form of punishment. So, long story short, he goes on this long tangent, and he plays the game of Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Glenn, and he bashes Glenn's skull in right in front of Rick, Maggie, everyone, until there's nothing left of his skull with his baseball bat that he names Lucille. And it's a very critical moment in it's probably so far to date the most tragic death in the comic series, because of how important of a role Glenn has played in their survival, and how he's well liked. Like, behind Rick Grimes, I mean, Carol's dead in the comics. You don't have her to like. There is no Daryl Dixon. He's not there. He's, like, other than Maggie, from the beginning, back before the farm, it was Rick and Glenn. And now he's gone in the comic series, you know? And that's where I'm going to break off into a tangent here. And before I make my prediction and have everyone click the dislike button, I want to explain something. This might not be that good of an example, but when I was growing up through high school, I remember my parents watched a soap opera called Days of Our Lives. And there was a villain in that soap opera. I believe his name was Stefano DiMera. And I remember my parents, my aunts, my uncles, I mean, they would come over and talk about the show with my parents and stuff when I was little. And they would always talk about how they hated this Stefano DiMera so much, and how he was, you know, doing this and doing that, or who he has kidnapped, or who he has possessed, and how some of the characters like John and Bo, if they're gonna rescue the person, and they couldn't stop talking about it, is the point I'm getting at. And elements like that make a great villain. And in comparison, I'll bring up the Governor from The Walking Dead. And the Governor was a great villain, but he became a great villain. He didn't instantly become a great villain, and I'll get back on that subject in just a moment here. The Governor became a great villain over the course of time. First, you know, he had this great hideout. You almost instantly found out it was basically being deceitfulness, you know. The things that he did to, I can't remember her name, the blonde, though, the one that ended up, she basically, you know, ended up dying because of her own foolishness. But amongst that and a bunch of other key elements, I mean, he killed Herschel. That was one that made you really hate him. That was towards the end, though. But I think what made me hate the Governor the most was the fact that they had that one episode, it may have been one or two episodes, where it actually showed him with another family that actually, you know, found him, helped him out, or whatnot. And he didn't do one villainous act whatsoever. And for some people, it was like, oh, the Governor can be a decent person. And instead, for me, it made me hate him even more, because it's at this point in time that you realize the Governor really does realize the difference of right and wrong, and that he chooses to do what he's doing against Rick's group. You know, it's not like some villains are psychopaths, or there's something mentally wrong with them. It's at this point that it's like, why are you doing this then? You know? But, anyways, in order to have a good villain, you have to make them a good villain. Like, you want your villain in your story to be hated. And that's what makes Negan hated in the comic book series, is because he takes out Glenn. He's such an important role. Everyone likes Glenn. And when it comes to character favorites, I kind of feel like, yes, Glenn's a favorite. I mean, he's one of the top favorites, but he's not at the cream of the crop, you know. We have Rick, who, you know, we got the Ricktatorship and everything, but he's also one of the main characters in the story, so I don't really see them killing him off. Everyone says, oh, Rick's invincible, blah, 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 and once again, anything can happen on the show compared to the comic book series. I don't feel that Rick is invincible, but I feel like they need to find Rick's kryptonite in order to do him off, and it has to be a very just cause reason. And then we have Daryl Dixon, who is most definitely the crowd favorite. We have t-shirts saying if Daryl dies, we riot, and that's where I'm going to make my prediction now. My prediction isn't saying that Glenn is alive or Glenn is dead right now. My prediction is that what The Walking Dead needs to do with Negan is what they did in the comic books was they made this character Negan. They made you hate him as much as you did the Governor, if not more, within like one comic book, like one episode. And for them to do something like that, they have to kill someone that everyone pretty much cares about. And with this new character, Daryl, being introduced to the story, it doesn't... people still care about Glenn, sure, but not as much as Daryl. And where I'm going to make my prediction here is that, let's say, I also feel that TMC has been having fun with Glenn, with, like, he has 9 lives. It's like, let's see how many close calls Glenn can have. And it's almost like I said, it's almost like they're having fun with it. So they keep this up, and let's say Glenn's alive, and then he got underneath that garbage can, whatever it was, slid underneath it, and Nicholas's body ended up landing on top of him. So let's say he survives it, ends up getting back to the group and everything. Yay, yay, happy day. However, eventually at some point in time, Negan is such an important character, he's going to eventually be introduced to the series. Now, everyone's going to think, if Glenn's alive, well, this is what's going to happen. But remember, this is the TV shows, not the comic book series, so anything can happen. And it's at this moment where I think that people will be shocked, and I really think that Daryl's going to be the one chosen instead of Glenn at this point in time. Now, it basically just chosen off the fact on how popular Daryl is and how tragic it would be. Because if you want to have a villain that everyone's going to hate more than the Governor that fast, what better way to do it than that way? I mean, yeah, that they could surprise. It would actually be a surprise to us if they followed the comic book story for once and they actually killed Glenn there. Now, let me go off on this prediction a little more, and even add to it a little more here. In the comic book series, Negan comes up to Rick's group, as I explained earlier, and goes, you guys have killed a bunch of my people. I'm going to have to punish you guys and show you that I'm serious and that no one messes with me. So he kind of is looking at everyone in the line. They're all like cuffed, kneeling down in front of him. And I can't remember his name because he's kind of new right now to the TV series, and I remember the names more and more the more I watch the TV series. But the black guy with the glasses, he's looking at him and he's like, well, I can't kill you because, that'd be accused for being a racist. And he says this in the comic book series. And it's kind of funny because he ends up killing Glenn in the comic book series. And Glenn's Asian, so it's like, so if you kill a black person, you're not racist, but if you kill an Asian, it's okay, But that's who he ends up picking with his little eeny, meeny, miny, mo game that he does. So, well, who do we care about a lot? Who's been playing a vital role since before the farm? That's not Asian or not black. Daryl Dixon. And then not only that, here's the other real shocker. If I was a Daryl Dixon fan right now, which I am, I'm just not as big as Glenn, but if I was a Daryl Dixon fan right now, I would be praying that Glenn is still alive. Because let's say Glenn died last night. Then they introduced Negan. And let's say they introduce Negan in the same fashion that they did in the comic books, where Rick's group gets captured, they all get put up in the line. And let's say that Daryl's in that lineup. There's no Glenn to die here, folks. And I highly doubt, unless if they found Rick's kryptonite by that time, that they're going to off him. So, my prediction right now is that Negan kills Daryl, whether Glenn is dead or alive. And if Glenn is dead right now, I'm going to make my prediction 100%. If Glenn is... Wow, I think I just misspoke there. If Glenn is dead right now, then Daryl's dead. 100% prediction. If Glenn is still alive, 75%. I think Daryl will still die. And that's just because they've been changing so many things with the TV series opposed to the comic book. And I know they're going to have to generate this hate to make Negan feel like this new, oh my god, what just happened villain. Like, they're going to have to do something to take the crowd's breath away, make them cry, make them do whatever they need to do. Now, the scary gambling part is the riot. Because you know people's going to riot when this happens. And I believe if an important character like Rick or Glenn or Daryl were to die, it would have to be in this kind of a fashion, though. It's the only way they could die would be in such an important role and breaking point in the story. So, that's I think I said pretty much everything that was on my mind, and I'm kind of curious, like, how many dislikes I'll get after hearing my prediction. I may have forgot a few other reasons. If I do, I might just put them in the comments section or the summary of the video. But I'm gonna finish up my bounty run here and get ready for work. I would really appreciate it if people actually put their comments, you know, told me what they think. Tell me if I'm an idiot, tell me if you agree with me, you know. I mean, what sucks is I don't want to see any of them die. I really like Daryl, I like Glenn. I mean, my order of character importance starts with Glenn, and then I like Rick, followed by Daryl, then Maggie, and then probably Abraham, just because he said mother dick. But I mean, everyone has their crowd favorites. That's what makes the watching The Walking Dead experience unique to each and every person. So, all right, I'm gonna finish up here, and you guys take it easy, and I'll see you next time. Later.